Hey, welcome to One Tough Day podcast. I am super stoked for today's episode. I have someone that's kind of a legend, especially in my heart, was actually my first professional boss, Pete Battista. If you know me, then there is no way we've had detailed conversation without at some point me mentioning a Peteism we've come to know them as. But man, I owe you so much, Pete. You gave me a chance when I was young and unproven. I think you saw something in me that pretty much defined me, I think, as a professional and as a leader. So if I haven't told you before, I want to tell you now, thank you for taking the time to invest and give a punk 22-year-old kid an opportunity and just taking that one step further, what you taught me just about leadership and being a man and being responsible. And we always say here, we don't have employees, we have coworkers. And I think I learned that from you in the way that you showed up at the hospital to see 2 of my 3 children born. And I remember the call that I gave you the day that my wife fell on the steps and I was running a call in Killbuck as she was pregnant. And you're like, where am I going? Am I running the call or am I going to the hospital to be with your wife? You tell me, I'm there. And again, I just think back to so many key moments early in my career that, again, I reference back to now, like how would Pete handle this situation? Very blessed to have had you and many others who helped to kind of get me to where I am today. But I'm so excited for this episode. We're going to talk about some Peteisms. We're going to talk about you, the family a little bit, and some of the methodology. So I know you don't like to hype yourself up, so let me do it for you real quickly, and then I want you to chime in with some other backstory that might help people to understand who you are, Pete.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
So Pete has ran numerous successful companies. He was a top performer at ComDoc, which is a Xerox-owned company back in the day. Helped to guide a $40 million branch, one of the most profitable divisions in Xerox Corporation. And then at one point they said, man, you're doing this so well, we want to ship you out to run your own company, not just a branch in Boise, a state that you'd always dreamed of retiring in. So went out there for a few years, helped to really enhance the performance of that Xerox core company before the girls started having some babies and all of a sudden drew you back to Northeast Ohio, which I was selfishly excited for because I didn't get to see you much when you were Boise. So, but at every level of your professional career, you've just had extreme success. And I remember you jumping on national sales calls for Xerox Corporation. All of a sudden, I went from getting to see you and interact with you every day to now I'm on these national sales calls as the Akron leader, right? That was my title once you moved on to greener pastures. And we're on there with how many cores? 60?
There were 42.
42 cores at the time. Yeah. And you were the one leading the calls and speaking about sales process and things. And I'm like, that's my dude. That's Pete, man. That's the guy that taught me everything I know. So
they probably didn't listen to anything I said, but it's all right.
I think they did because especially back then, man, we were crushing it. That company was a money-making machine. And we knew how to take care of our customers extremely well. And I learned a lot of what we do today in the HVAC companies and plumbing companies from the core concepts that we developed back then. So elaborate a little more. Tell us a little bit about who you are, Pete. I've done enough talking to start this thing.
Yeah, well, thanks, Steve. I don't know that I actually deserve all that high praise, but I do remember those days back then. And when I interviewed you, I said, I can't let this guy walk out of the restaurant. He's got to be a part of the team. And whatever I got to do, I got to. He's one of the starting 5, right? So we'll hear that.
Why starting 5, baby? Yeah, I love it.
And but I do remember that day that Danielle had that accident, and I would categorize that as one tough day.
Yeah,
because you never know what happens next. But it's been a great ride, and just to see where you're at right now is just such a blessing. I mean, you are one talented guy, and made a huge impact on the team and where we're headed. It's so much easier to get things done when you surround yourself with great people.
Amen. I think I learned that from you. Well, watched you build out some incredible teams in our time together working at Xerox, and just saw how much easier it made things, right?
Oh, 100%. You can't be the guy that's doing all the heavy lifting. It'll drain you. It'll tear you up. And so I came to the realization, and I'll get right back to the question that you asked, but the other day when I had a phone call back from Boise, and our high volume leader at the time was talking about good old times, and I told him and our other division leader for the managed print services, I said, you guys, you know what? I came to the realization that I was absolutely at my best running on all cylinders when I wasn't in charge of everything. I surrounded myself with very capable people, and that, I don't know whether that was by accident or luck, but it was great because you didn't have to talk a lot. You could guide a little bit and coach, but they brought new ideas to the table that I didn't think of.
Yeah,
And so,
amen to that. And I think that's one of those core concepts, Pete, that I absolutely learned from you. Not that you got to hire the right people, but then once you hire the right people, you have to empower them.
yeah,
If you can give them the why and the philosophy, the core values, whatever
sure.
you want to call them, the general direction,
Yep,
then that's always. And this is something Brigham and I just talked about last week, but. Those are the things that define you organizationally.
yeah,
That has to be the reference point, but then to empower them to make decisions based on those concepts. So it
sure.
gets to that point. Like, remember the bracelets everybody used to wear that said WWJD?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, and that was the, what would Jesus do concept, like encouraging kids to
Oh
think
no,
like, what would he do in this situation? So, but I know we would make jokes about like WWPD and whatnot, but if you think about when you're talking to your people, if you can get them to understand organizationally who we are and what our goal is.
sure,
Now, reference back to that, WW, what would the company do based on these core values with
sure.
every decision you make? How often is that going to lead you astray?
Oh, it won't. It won't. And you know what the beautiful thing about what you just said, Steve, is that, jokingly but not jokingly, whenever I was out of pocket or somewhere and it would be hard to reach me, and I would say, call me if you need me, try not to need me. Right.
Yeah.
And the reason I would say that, and they just think I was a smart aleck, right? But the reason I would say that is, and one of my others is, you get paid to think too. And so they would come over and ask the question, and I saw you doing it as well, and it was beautiful. And you would just say, hey, if I wasn't here, what would you do? And they'd go, well, I'd do this. And I'd go, okay, pretty good start.
And how often is that the exact right answer?
Yeah. And then I would say, great, go do it. And if it wasn't that, I'd just say, well, what's the ramification if that doesn't work?
Very rarely life or death.
What's the back? That's exactly it. There's very few irreversible decisions in life. There's a couple, right? And maybe a handful, but man, you learn so much when you just resonate back on, here was what was laid out in front of me, and my immediate reaction turned out to be not that far off.
Yeah.
And so even if you made a mistake, it's okay. What'd you learn, right? Everybody says that. So there's nothing new there of what I just said, but I think more importantly, that gave people a sense of, he's not going to call me in and yell at me or fire me. He's going to say, hey, actually, I've done worse.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Hey, I get it, dipshit. I
Yeah.
think maybe once or twice came out. But man, this is going to be a great conversation. I'm so excited, Pete. Talking to you just invigorates me every single time. And
Well,
I'll be
glad.
just a little bit better than I was an hour ago here in a little bit. So it's so good having you with me. But you're so right. And I think back to conversations we had early on. And again, this is, now I'm the old guy thinking back to like when I say, 20 years ago, Pete, we were having these conversations, but you and I were talking 20 years ago, which blows my mind. I think
20 years ago, you made fun of me for driving a minivan, but outside of that, we're good.
Yeah, I did. I remember that light blue Ford Aerostar, whatever it was.
That thing had a
Smurf blue.
spoiler. You should have seen the looks I got when I pulled up to
It
intersections.
did. It almost cost you an opportunity to win a young, ambitious sales guy. Because I was like, wait, this is the epitome of success. If I do really
Yes.
well, then I at some point can buy a used Ford Aerostar. But I think back, Pete, too, when you just talked, man, like 42 different thoughts started popping into my head.
Yeah.
I remember at one point we had a conversation, and I want to thank you for always allowing me to make those decisions, because it's impressive that you were able to take your hands off the wheel to allow a 20-some-year-old kid oftentimes to do those things. But I don't think I would have been where I was, and I probably wouldn't be where I am now had you not kind of accelerated my growth. Because prior to that, every job I had was truly a job. It wasn't about developing me as a leader.
Okay.
It wasn't about developing me as a professional. It was about like, here's the manual, follow it.
Sure.
And anytime you went outside the black and white,
Yeah.
refer back to the black and white.
Sure.
Basically, there is no gray. But you constantly were forcing me to think critically, which, also forced me to invest in that career and my own development, my own leadership. Because many times when you force someone to self-reflect, you realize you don't have a skill that you need to get to that next level.
Right.
So now I have to go seek it out. So talk about that a little bit, and how as a leader, how difficult that can be to sit back and be like, I got to watch them try to find their way through this maze, even though I know exactly how to get them through it the fastest. That's going to not give them the skills they need to be able to navigate the maze versus just getting through the maze, right?
Yeah. It's at 100%. Well, earlier on, you asked, hey, tell us a little bit about your story. Then you just said two things that I want to touch on real quick. I went to college because that's exactly what was expected. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I graduated.
We share that, right?
Yeah. I crammed a 4-year degree into 5 years and and graduated with a business administration degree, right? And I just knew I wanted to
You're
be
on the Tommy Boy plan.
Yeah, right. But I knew I wanted to be working with people, and I thought I could sell. Okay. But to get there, long story short, before I even got there, you talked about jobs and just didn't really have, I guess, where you were saying, hey, I'm just going to excel. But what I always tried to do, Steve, is I was thankful for every rotten job that I had, and I had them. I mean, I loaded semi trucks on the Cleveland docks when it was 0 degrees out to help pay for school, and construction work where I thought that made sense after 4 surgeries later. My shoulders are blown out, but it was what I thought I needed to do at the time. But I wouldn't have learned all those things about how hard work is and what hard work is and what I've got to do. And I just always thought, you know what? It doesn't matter what I'm doing, and I'm not trying to be bigger than life on this, but I just thought if I'm the best at what I'm doing right now, then I can leave with a clear conscience, and it's going to lead me somewhere else. So when you talked about other jobs and so on and so forth, I think that was just one of those keys. But talk about a tough day when you're lifting brick tongs all the way 4 scaffolds high, or when somebody doesn't set the boards right and you drop down 20 feet with 2 buckets of mud, and you hit the ground. That's kind of a tough day too. But
a little different. Now, it's funny though, because I know this much about you. So if somebody would have showed up at that job site and been like, hey, Pete, in a few years, you're going to be leading a team that's responsible for tens of millions of dollars, wearing, designer suits to work most days so that you can blend in that professional environment. You probably would have been like, I don't think that's true. But even when you were wearing the designer suits and having to go to work and manage, influencing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, quite frankly, at some point, if anybody would have said, hey, I need you to go home and change real quick and help me lay some bricks out front, you would have enjoyed that too.
Yeah, I could have helped him for sure. So anyway, I said all that to say this. In every one of those steps, I believe it gets you closer to where the Lord has you to be, according to your skill set, and where he needs you to be. So that's just a little bit of history and background. And then finally, did a little bit of work for about a year in the aerospace industry for Goodyear Aerospace. And then I was let go there from layoff. And I thought, well, that's no good. I need a place where I can determine my own outcome and be in control of my own destiny and make an impact. And so that's when I started with ComDoc as a marketing exec in '88. We call it a marketing exec. I was a territory rep.
Yeah, sales guy.
Yeah, sales guy with equipment in the back, and the idea was to come home without it.
Yeah. And there's some great stories, by the way.
Oh,
absolutely killer stories about like hospital gurneys, and you guys all had to drive station wagons.
Yeah.
And you would literally be expected to do a certain number of demos per day where you would, tell us a story about those days real quickly.
Oh, there's one I'll never forget. I talked this gal into seeing one of our smaller platform machines. And back then the camera was stationary and the top moved back and forth. So it had a travel path of, gosh, I would say greater than 3 feet. So she came out, smaller business. This gal had a desk, and I said, "You got to see this. It's the greatest thing ever." And no, I really don't need it. And I said, "Yeah, but you got to see it. How can you even make a decision if you haven't even seen it?" So she finally begrudgingly said, "Okay, I'll see it." So I cleared off a spot, really just about for the base of the unit. And when I plugged it in, and I said, I was being cordial, "Hey, give me something that I should copy, right?" And so she gave me something, and I put it down, and I hit start, and I was mortified because I watched the top move and clear off the right side of her desk and then come back and clear off the left side of her desk. I mean, coffee cups, pens and pencils, pictures on her desk. It was all on the floor.
Oh, my God.
And it finally came back to the home position, and I looked at her, and she said, "I think we're done." And I said, "Does that mean you don't want it?"
Yeah, it's a great desk clearing device.
Oh my God, what an idiot!
You and I share a mutual friend, Dom Rizzo, character, fellow Italian friend, right? And he tells the story of he sold copiers for one day. I don't know if you remember that story.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he sold copiers for one day. So same time frame, like I think mid 80s. And he had a desktop unit. He said, I literally was carrying it into the building to give a customer a demo.
Yeah.
And I dropped it, and it bounced down like 3 stairs.
Oh my.
And he's like, this thing was like, $3,000 at the time, which was a ton of money back in the mid 80s. And he's like, I look it over and everything seems to be in working order. He's like, so I take it up there, I plug it in on our desk, I hit the start button to show her the demo. it catches on fire. He says, literally, we have to grab the fire extinguisher, put the copier out. He said, I take a smoldering copier back to my boss, put it on his desk, and says, I'm out. I'm done. I can't do this job. I'm like, that's brilliant. But I appreciate the backstory. I want to keep flowing with this conversation because I've had so many people since I came into the trade say, like, man, your sales guys are beasts. Like, these guys are animals. They close at stupid high rates, way above industry average, which obviously my history. And I had the opportunity to bring you into this industry. I tricked you into joining us for a couple of years and post-retirement, and the whole companies are better for that. But one thing I tell folks when they call me and say, like, how do these guys do what they do? I'm like, these are copier guys. Like, if you can sell a copy, you can sell anything. Go find you a copier guy anywhere in this country. I don't care who they are. Because in my experience, and it's said here, by the way, I'm an HVAC sales guy. I did it for a few months before, as soon as we bought the first company, because I wanted to figure out how to do it and see if I could do it well, like I had done with other things I had sold throughout my life. So, and it worked. It translated. And my first epiphany moment was like day one on the job. I was like, this is it. Like, you're going to tell me Mr. and Mrs. Smith need a furnace, and I just have to go there and convince them that they need to buy it from me? Like, I don't have to go pull in 100 doors a week and have 14 pre-scheduled appointments and 16 completed and metrics management and beg you to give me honest information about your 5-year lease contract. And like, I was like, this is fish in a barrel. And Chad's like, I think you're going to find it's a little harder. It wasn't.
You said no.
It was fish in a barrel. Literally in 3 months for a company that had done 350 grand the entire year, I sold 800 grand in 3 months. So more than double what they'd done. And I'm not saying that for self-promotion. I'm saying that because this business to someone who's had a job like that is really easy. So we went out and hired some copier dudes, right? And all of a sudden they were like, same kind of epiphany, like, this is it. This is all I got to do. Like, you're going to feed me leads and I have to rehash them well, get them to the finish line. I have to make sure that I'm communicating well with customers, getting them to understand our value statement, how we're different. Okay, I could do this. And they all crush it. They're all like top performers. Like, I hear guys saying like, oh man, it took me 10 years to sell $3 million bucks. And by the way, we're in Ohio. Our HVAC companies. We're not in Southern California where the tickets are 50 grand. Like, average household income here is $46,000. Average house value is like 90,000, right? Like, this isn't a major metropolitan area here. Like, we're very Central America, right? Rural America. So people look at that and they're like, well, how do these guys come into this industry to have immediate success? You more than anybody can understand that. So talk a little bit about like the nature of what we were doing and how we developed our teams and how that translates really well to any other industry.
Sure. Well, boy, oh boy, is that it's like, what's the meaning in life? Be succinct, right?
Yeah, that was a 4-minute question, so it's hard to answer it succinctly. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Back then, Steve, it was really the formula, and we always had it measured out, and we knew that so many contacts led to so many appointments, and so many dials led to contacts, and so on and so forth. So it was excruciating, the activity level that you had to help them drive. And what we always said was, or at least I said was, hey, look, if you do these things, if you can start the day with 10, 20 calls, whatever it is, and then go out and have some strategic stop buys and pull on some doors and try to make some opportunities happen, it doesn't guarantee success, but boy, oh boy, it sure does eliminate the most obvious reason that people are not successful. So if you can clear the deck on those things, then it positions you to be that much better. Doesn't guarantee success. And the other thing is that I would tell folks all the time is I said, listen, I don't know how long you're going to be here. You might be here a month. You might be here a year. You might be here 2 years. You might be here 10. So the odds are you're not going to retire from here. But if you do a great job and you can stand tall and there's no shame in this industry having succeeded at it, man, oh man, the future is bright.
You can name your price. You'll never have to stand in an unemployment line again.
No, and so it's just, I don't know, what's the one thing that some people will say, and it's so true, and that is you got to fall in love with the process, right? It's the process that gets the, I'll call it the good disciplines, and it helps you refine, and then you've got something to work with. So,
amen to that. So, digging into that a little further, I want to pick on that one for a second. So when I came on board, Pete, I remember I think I was 21 or 22 years old. Had just bought my first house a year or two prior. I had a mortgage to pay, which is unusual for most people. I just graduated college, was fortunate enough to do so with no debt. But I remember walking into your bullpen, we called it, right? The sales
Yeah.
bullpen,
Yep.
and immediately feeling this like palpable culture where there was like extreme accountability, extreme ownership of your quota, your to-do list. Like every Friday we telemarketed without fail, without exception.
Yeah.
Every Monday morning we had a sales meeting, right? Every single meeting without fail. If you weren't there, somebody else was there leading it. You would appoint someone or someone else would
Sure.
step in. There was an agenda. We knew exactly what we were supposed to do. And so for me as a young professional, I just remember thinking like, oh, I can get down with this. Like I'm not here because honestly, when I first took the job, I thought like same thing you just said.
Yeah.
This will be a good stepping stone to the next thing.
Sure.
And I think after being there for like 2 weeks, I felt like maybe I actually could retire from here. And by the way, I spent the next 14 years thinking I would retire from there, right? Until I had an opportunity to do something really cool in the trades. But how do you, as a leader, create that culture and that accountability? Is it all about hiring the right talent? Is it all about having the right process? Is it about supporting the right initiatives as a company so that your people can feel compelled to charge up the mountain for them? Like, what is it?
Yeah. Boy, oh boy, that's a great question, Steve. So, you know, many times we've always seen it, and that is the most talented person that doesn't work hard, they won't make it. But you take somebody that's willing to work hard and they're open and they can learn, man, oh man, you got something there that you can build on. And it's really gratifying for them too, because, you know, they can see the progress, right? Most people, and then I'll get really right back to your question. Most people get out of bed every day, whether they think of it cognitively or not. That word didn't come out real easy. But when they think about it, can they make a difference? Are they valued? Are they in control of their own destiny? And do they have a future path? Right? Those are the things that people, I think, if they're not asking it, they should be. And that'll determine, am I in the right spot?
So how much as a leader did you think of those things? What's your role in giving people the ability to see those things?
Well, again, maybe I just happened upon that by accident, which is possible, but I wanted to know that I was able to make my own decisions within reason, within the bounds of the company and the ethics and so on, right? So as long as I'm in control, I have no one else to blame. This is my decision. It's my decision whether I give it a full effort today or whether I cheated my family, right?
Oh yeah.
So
we're going to talk about PDSMs here a little bit. DCYF, baby.
Yeah,
It still
there you
sticks
go.
right here.
There it is. So, you know, those are the things. But getting back to how do you establish that culture and how can it be felt and how can it be exuded? And everybody owns it, right? So to me, it was really one-on-one communication with your people. And the more you know about your people, you know what makes them tick. And sure, you do the rudimentary things like saying, hey, take a picture of something that you want, put it in your work area so I can see it.
The
I
old
can help
vision
you get there.
board.
Sure, you know, as corny as those things are, they do work. And so I always thought that if I don't know this person intimately, and I brought them in the company, I hired them. They're my responsibility to a certain degree. I got to do everything I can to develop that person and give them light and give them wings.
Amen.
If I give up on them, then shame on me. I just wasted 4 months of their life. And then they're going to talk badly about the company, but I'm going to be crushed if I start hearing that they're talking bad about me. I don't do well with that. So immediately we had the one-on-one meetings, and we always had structure. And so what frustrates people, I think, whatever industry you're in, is if they don't know what happens next, if they don't know what's expected of them, then it's just a moving target. And then if they ever got let go and they sit back and they go, where did that come from?
Right.
And I will tell you this, Steve, I don't know.
You want to create a demotivating culture.
Oh, amen.
Blindside your people with no expectation of what or why it happened. Right?
Yeah. And we've always had it, and you had it, and I know you well enough that you did the same, and that is there was nobody that left the company that I think was caught by surprise. And I think that's incredibly important.
They shouldn't have been.
No, they shouldn't have been. I mean, maybe one out of a handful, one.
Yeah.
But the point is that if they knew, you were coaching constantly, right?
Constantly.
And it wasn't just give me the numbers, pound the desk and do more. That doesn't get it. What always helped me is
that's like telling a kid in T-ball to, hey, catch the ball, swing the bat. Like, oh no shit, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Like, let's break that down a little more fundamentally, right?
Yeah, right. Run faster. Oh, okay. Yeah, I never thought of that. I used to have a sales manager, and he'd go, "Look, you just got to try and sell more." I'm like, "Whoa, thanks, Copernicus." you know, that was, wow. Okay, I'm enlightened. Are we done now? Right?
Exactly.
Um,
But by the way, that is the philosophy of many leaders, and that's where the
oh,
process breaks down. They're not willing to put the process and the
yeah,
substance behind it, and they're not
yeah,
willing to do the hard work. It's easier to sit on your throne and just bark back cliche
sure,
catchphrases that
sure,
you've heard work in other organizations.
yeah.
But what you didn't realize is those were supported with some pretty awesome processes, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what I think cleared the deck for the folks, we would sit down and you did the same, and I watched you do it, and it was great, still great, is that we would say, okay, what is your goal? Here's the money that you can make in the first year if you apply yourself. And they'd get excited about that. Okay, great. Let's that's our target. Let's go. Now let's work backwards. How do we break that down into 12 months? Okay, well, that's easy. Then we would do the evaluation at the end of we'd meet every week, and then we would meet once a month in that overall higher 10,000 foot plan of review. Oh, how did we do towards that goal? Well, we fell a little short. Okay, but did we make progress? Did we make progress from the month prior? Yes. Okay, let's celebrate that, right? This isn't just a beatdown. You can whip your dog so many times it doesn't come home again, right? But anyway, then we would just back it up a little bit and just peel back that onion and say, okay, well, let me see, how many deals were you involved in? How many did you win? How many did you lose?
Right.
If you're not losing deals, you're not in enough, right? It's going to happen.
I remember this. This is like
Deja vu,
man. Right
deja
now,
vu
I'm
all over
thinking
again.
back to like analyzing the process, not just as the manager, the leader, but also being across the table from you,
Yeah.
with you analyzing my sales results. And I talked on the episode with Brigham about this exact same thing. Like at some point, you would have to admit, like, well, listen, if you're being honest with me,
Yeah.
and we never really gave the honesty thing a chance to not be an option, because I
Right.
know you taught me, like, you got to be in the car. You got to be in the car with your rep. You can't just tell them. You can't just manage by
Yeah.
metrics.
Yeah.
You got to be in the car. You got to be in the one-on-one. We constantly were doing one-on-ones with people to
Sure.
figure out where was the process breaking down. But at some point, sometimes you would have to admit, like, I hired a really great person. They have the potential, but maybe they don't have the talent for this industry, or maybe they're just not doing the work. And if
Sure.
you can't do the work, you can't be successful in this business.
Oh,
And that was usually
100%.
the people we would separate from. But to your
Yeah.
earlier point, that was never a surprise. That was like
Yeah.
weeks, months, maybe even a year
Yeah.
of coaching to get to the point where we would say, like, for whatever reason, whether it's talent or work capacity,
Sure.
this industry is just not good for you. And you're not seeing the results that are going to get you to what we talked about
Hmm.
back in January that you said was so important. You said you needed to make X.
Right.
You're not making X.
Yeah.
And it's not a good feeling to go home every day feeling
Right.
like a failure, right? So it's probably time for you to go find that thing you could be passionate about, that you could
Sure.
succeed at, because we all deserve that in life. And I definitely learned that from you.
Well, you know what? You just touched on something else. It was a flashback, right? And that is one of the other things that we always tried to do. And I know you did a good job of it with your team, is as soon as they're hired, you got to find a reason to get to know their family,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because you only have that person for so long, and then they're going to go home and their spouse is going to be asking them questions, right?
Yes.
And they would come home mad or pissed off or whatever. And, and then the spouse, now you've just lost somebody that can be one of your advocates and your cheerleaders, right? So
Probably the most important advocate in cheerleading, by the way.
100%, 100%. But, you touched on something that just really what you were speaking of, Steve, is that you've got a close relationship with the people that you serve and support. And like you, I always hated it.
I just
go
want to
out.
point out something you just said real quick, and then we're going to stick with that thought.
Okay.
The people I serve. And then I want to come back to that at some point. I'm going to make a note, because that is such a huge thing. But keep flowing with where you were at.
Yeah, so we'll get there, but you develop that relationship, and the mistake that bigger companies make, and you want to disassemble a great company in short order, and that is to, number one, disassociate yourself with the people that you serve and support. Expand
It's almost like you've seen this happen, Pete.
yeah, expand the the span of control, and now all of a sudden everything becomes desensitized, right?
And disconnected.
And disconnected. And oh, by the way, that's when you start to see the rifts come in place. Well, what happened? I don't know. They cut me.
Reduction in force. Just
Yeah.
Here's a
Is that because you
were
weren't
list
Yeah, because you
gone by Friday.
weren't producing. I had one of the best years in Boise when I was serving and supporting Boise office equipment. My best year out of 5, and then 2 months later, consolidation.
Makes no sense.
And I'm like, well, I guess no good deed goes unpunished. But anyway, You learn from it.
Yeah, and that's one part of any business that I obviously don't like and envy. But back to what you said earlier, the people you serve, it's so important, and that's I think that servant mentality, we'll call it, right? That heart of servitude, however you want to refer to it. I think that is something that I'll forever be grateful from learning from you and the other great leaders I had at Xerox. Because whether it was you, whether it was Stu, whether it was Gordy, whether any of those great people, Keith. I mean, he was pivotal in my development leadership training. They all led with this heart of servitude. Like, I'm here to serve you. And so it just becomes this habit. It changes the way you think when you think of it that way. You don't work for me, I work for you. And I heard that multiple times. You would jump in the car with me, you'd go cold calling, and I would introduce you and I'd say like, hey, this is Pete, my boss. And then you would oftentimes intervene and be like, I work for him.
Yeah.
And it just, again, it changes the psychology behind when you wake up and work every day. Like, man, if he's here working hard for me, then I definitely have to work hard for him. Right.
Yeah.
So it's just like a little twist in words that changes the way that we, psychoanalyze what we do every day. I never felt browbeaten. I never felt taken advantage of.
Good.
But I very much every day woke up and wanted to work really hard for you. So whatever psychology went into that, right? And I know that your entire team shared that sentiment. I remember having days where like I'd have a really productive day by 4:00. Right. And my metrics were way ahead of where they needed to be to be successful. And all of a sudden, Dale Highsmith would call me at 4:00 and he'd say like, hey, where you at? And I'd be like, oh, I just walked in the house. Where are you at? And he'd be like, sitting in my driveway. It's not 5:00. I'm making 20 more phone calls. And I'd be like, all right, I guess I'll head back out to the car.
Yeah, here we go.
Like, damn, I don't have a choice not to work hard here. Like, this is teaching me some really good habits.
Yeah, I can't run from that one.
Yeah, no. And I'm just intrigued by how you created that culture, specifically in our branch early days. And I think that was like, in my mind, Pete, that was like probably some of the best, most pivotal 10 years of my life when I had the opportunity to work in your branch in Akron with all these other great folks that you had built. I mean, that was your team. You built that team. And it's just such an impressive thing. And I think organizationally, people struggle today to develop that. And they're focusing so much. We hear this word culture. Everywhere you go, culture. People think it's like this cliche thing. You say like, well, what'd you do to develop culture? Like, well, we buy pizza every Friday.
Right.
That's not culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, we do this. I give them a bonus. And, I walk by and I fist bump them every time they do something successful. Like, not culture. Like, help me define that for people that don't get it. For someone who is so incredibly good at it, how did you build that culture? And what was your daily focus to get your team to wake up with that drive to perform for you because you were performing for them?
Well, again, I don't know if I deserve all that high praise, but
you do.
Let me thanks. But I do remember those days, and I just was so impressed with your focus and your ability. You just knew what you had to do to get it done. That's why A+ players, whether I do a great job or not, most times are going to be A+ players, and that's the category I'd put you in. But so, getting back to the servant leadership, it was actually two things that happened there. ComDoc, I think, developed that servant leadership with the upside down org chart, right? And it made all the sense in the world. And then there was a book that absolutely changed my way of looking at things and my trajectory. And it's a book called Leadership is an Art by Max Dupree. Fantastic book. It's relatively short. It's hard hitting. It's got a lot of biblical principles in it. And, as we quickly look to Christ and say, what model did Christ have for us? Well, he was busy caring for the disciples, not just caring and guiding, but he washed their feet. Christ, the Messiah, sat down with a towel over his shoulder and a pan of water. And, geez, if there's not a better model than that, I don't know what is. But it was so easy to correct people and say, look, you don't work for me. First of all, you're working for yourself. Second of all, you're working for your family, right? Yeah. So please don't introduce me as the boss or the man, whatever. I am just here. I'm your support agent. I'm actually your coach, right? And what coach has to run onto the field and throw the pass, take the snap, or hit the ball? None. No. If they've done their job right, they are on the sidelines watching it all come together because they've put in the hard work, they've served and supported, and they've helped them when they've been having trouble. Hey, I don't know how to do this. Okay, what is it? Well, this part of my job. Well, let's jump in the car. Let me watch you. Let me observe. And by the way, when we're on the call, I'm not going to do the talking. If you look at me and you don't know the answer that you just got asked on the question you just got asked, you might look at me. I'll help you out a little bit, but be ready because it's coming right back to you.
Yeah, you're so right, Pete. And you know, everything you said, like people always want the end result.
Yeah.
But I think they struggle with how to get the end result, right? Like if you ask a lot of people, they'll say they're culture driven, they'll say, but they don't take this moment to realize, like, when was the last time I was in a car with someone, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think pretty shortly after I joined the team, you became a vice president of sales at Xerox, a title I went on to be able to hold later, much later in life. But you were always willing to jump in the car with me. And
Yeah.
that meant so much to me as a young guy who was looking not just for results because I had income needs,
Yeah.
but also for ways of, at some point, I didn't realize it at the time. Like at some point, what you were doing is building these habits within me that was going to help me to support my team, where I'm still willing to jump in a car. I'm still willing to answer a phone call at 10 o'clock at night. Like my guys know my phone is never shut off. If you need me, call me, text me. I mean, I've talked to some of our reps over the years, guys that you worked alongside with, who would call me at 1 a.m. crying because of some personal thing going on in their life. And I'm like, I want that phone call. And people have asked me before, like, God, doesn't that bother you though, as a business owner or leader? And I mean, for all intents and purposes, we approached that business like we were owners, right?
Yeah.
You owned
100%.
it, I owned it. I was like, no, there's no one else I would want them to call in that moment. I want them to know that they can call me because I truly care about them.
Yeah.
And you have to understand as a leader, like that has to come first, right?
Yeah.
You can't have all the cheesy cliche sayings without first that care and that connection. You talk back about heart of servitude. You talk about developing a relationship with their family members and their spouse. Like it's all so important, and you can't have one without the other.
Right.
And for the record, I want everybody to know there were many times you did browbeat me, and every single time I deserved it because I was a very stubborn, hard-nosed, like definitely in my 20s, more arrogant than I am today. Probably, and arrogance is the inflation of one's own self-importance, right? Like I definitely thought I was more important in the ComDoc world than what I was selling, my $1 million a year, whatever. And you definitely had a way of bringing me back to center pretty quickly, but not doing so in a way that robbed me of my dignity and pride. So it helped me to develop as a leader. So how talk a little bit about that. How are you able to do that? Because I think bringing this full circle organizationally, if you want to grow, you have to develop your next layer of leaders. You can't be the guy sitting up here controlling everything. You have to build that team.
You got to.
And oftentimes some of your best players are going to be a little cocky, a little conceited like I was, or maybe struggle with confidence, which is the exact opposite of what I was, right? How do you build that team so that you can then move on to the next big thing, but also keep your priority on them so that they don't feel forgotten about?
Yeah. Wow. Another good string of 2 or 3 questions there. But I do remember a couple of those instances, and you were pretty headstrong. It took me a little while to get through to you, and I think I had to model.
I appreciate your patience.
I had to model more listening than talking, and that's for sure.
Still probably do today.
Well, what's the old phrase? You don't learn anything with your mouth open, right?
Pedism. Mark that one down.
Mark it down. And I still think you even have a phone that has them all listed in there. They did that in Boise. I'm like, no,
I have
people.
PDisms. I do.
Anyway, they're kind of funny. They're so true though. But anyway, getting back to your point, one of the things that I always tried to make sure I did was to be approachable, and that is that people would get frustrated with me, and I would hear the scuttlebutt out in the office or do whatever, and so I'd catch wind of it, and I'd pull them in, and I'd shut the door, and their eyes are really big, and I'm like, hey, you're unsettled. I heard you said this or that. That's okay. But next time, just come in. Just come in, shut the door. When that door's closed, you and I you can say whatever you want to me, right? But when that door opens, we'll both be on the same page, and you'll feel better because you've been heard, and I'll learn. I'll learn the mistake I might have made or the thing that I might have said. Because one of my big developmental things, even probably to this day, was I would tell people on the front end, I would say, hey, listen, you're in outside sales, so I'm just going to need you to toughen up. You're going to have some thick skin, okay? Yeah. Because we're going to be moving fast. You do matter. I do care about you, right? But you got to be a 5-minute person. You can't be a 30-minute person. And they'd go, what the heck does that mean? And I'd go, well, listen, we may only have 5 minutes. And if that's all I got to give you some feedback, and by the way, feedback is a gift. if I don't give you the feedback, you're not going to get a chance to grow. You're not going to get a chance to be better today than you are yesterday. So if you're a 5-minute person, we can get that done in 5 minutes. But if you're going to be a 30-minute person, then I may not take the chance to, I may not even take the, the aggravating burden of trying to help you see what it is that you need to work on. So need you to be 5. I'm going to be short and succinct. Sometimes I might offend you, but please come in, talk to me about it. And, I had one rep that taught me a great lesson. And I asked for feedback one time in a review, and he said, "You really want to know?" I said, "Yeah, I wouldn't ask if I didn't want to know." And he'd say, "Well, when we're updating, you've got your laptop open, and there's times where you're looking at the laptop and I could just tell you're not listening to what I'm saying." And I went, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. What a pearl." Shut my laptop, pushed it aside. I said, "Thank you. Thanks for that gift. It won't happen again." So then,
Instead of getting defensive and saying,
Yeah,
"Hey,
I
I'm
mean,
busy. I have to be able to multitask." And
yeah. Oh, you kidding me? A man of my importance.
do you think I could only focus on
Yeah.
you for 5 minutes?
Right. But what I learned was something there that was near and dear to their heart, and that and I think that went a long way. Also, probably even more so, then it gave me the right to be able to say, "Hey, here's some feedback for you as well," in a developmental manner, right, with love.
Yeah.
So
That's such an awesome point. I'll never forget. There's probably, a dozen like truly defining moments for me in my professional career. And I think at this point, like you had either called in the big dog or something because you're probably like temporarily given up on me or got frustrated with me, which again, very much deserved because I was extremely headstrong and very arrogant. So, but I remember I was around 28, 30 years old, and I had an opportunity to talk to Stu. And my guess is, I still don't know how it all went down, that you had called him in and said something along the line like, I'm just not getting through to Steve. Like, I see potential, which again, thank you for always sticking with me, despite me being so hard-headed. But so Stu came in and he started telling me some feedback. And I'm a salesman, so what did I do? Like, you give me the objection, I'm going to handle it. Like,
Right.
Steve, you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why Pete's wrong. And let
Yeah.
me tell you why I'm always right. I'm 28 years old and I have everything figured out here, Stu.
Sure.
What could I possibly have to learn from all these other extremely successful business leaders who are 20 years older than me? So Stu said, he's like, "I got to stop you right there." And I just remember that kind of like getting my attention. Like, "What's up?" He's like, "I can make this real short and sweet. Feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
If you're willing to accept feedback, you have unlimited potential in this world.
Yeah.
You have as much talent as anyone I've ever met.
Yep.
But if you can't, then your growth and development as a leader is done today. It's done. You'll know as much at 50 as you do today at 28, 30 years old, whatever I was.
Yeah.
So you got to make a decision. You got to make it right now.
Right.
Do you want to be better in a few years, or do you want to be done growing today?" Which would be a tragedy. And I just remember, like, in the moment, naturally
Pearls.
refacting. No,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was still too stupid. I was like, "Screw him. He's wrong." But that one stuck with me. I went home, which is the way it usually has to work for me. I've learned that now. I'm become a little more mature, and I processed that, and it like hit me for days where I was like, "Holy shit. Like, have I done this my whole life? I think I have." I remember my coach like making their life way harder because they would give me feedback, and I was always more like, I just always had this natural sales thing where I was always trying to convince someone,
Yeah.
and then I remember thinking back to like some of my earlier jobs, and then I went real deep with it, and I was like, God, what did my parents go through raising me?
Right.
Growing up, like every time I got in trouble or they tried to discipline
God bless
me.
him, right?
Yeah. And I was like, he's 100% right.
Yeah.
And then I start getting like kind of sad. Like, where would I be today if I would have been more open-minded to that feedback, 10 years ago? But no one was ever quite willing to check my ego the way that he did that day. And I think, again, that was a pivotal moment for me where I was like, I really started thinking about that feedback is a gift. They have the ability to see something that I can't see from a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I have to accept that if I ever want to be better and different.
Yeah.
That was just, what a culture we had in those days, right?
Yeah. And you know what, Steve, really what we both said without saying it directly is that when you have the right people on your team, the updates, even the difficult times, weren't difficult because nobody was braced for a fight. This isn't I'm going to prove you wrong so that I can feel better as I walk out the door. That doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times that leads to departure. Right.
Usually those people didn't last long within an organization.
Yeah. And so I guess one of the things I reflect back even now from the Boise team, I would walk by a work area and I would see a white piece of paper and it would say Pete's top 5 on
Starting
it.
5, yeah.
And the top 5 for me was, and everybody knew it, and it was first attitude, if you show up with a great attitude and a can-do, and you're, we're building on that positivity, man, oh man, that is hard to replace. The second is effort, right? If I've got somebody with the right attitude and they're putting in the effort even above and beyond, holy cow, they've got two things really rolling in the right direction. And
Both things you can control.
yeah, 100%.
Conscious decision every day. I can control my effort and my attitude.
Yep, attitude and effort. Openness is the third, right? If somebody, you can't save a drowning man unless he knows he's drowning, right? They'll fight you the whole time. And
Pull
that's,
you both down.
yeah, and that's exhausting. It's just, it'll wear you out. So it's attitude, effort, openness. If I can give you some feedback and you're a 5-minute person, and then you can act on it, man, oh man, we got 3 things really, really rolling the right. So it's attitude, effort, openness, progress. Okay. So we get those other 3 rolling in the right direction, and there's no way you're not going to make progress. There's no way. Even if it's in the small things, you celebrate those small things, because you never know what's right around the corner. The big things are coming because you got it rolling the right direction. And the last one is results. I unfortunately can think probably on one hand how many people had the first 4, but they just couldn't produce the results. And that's okay. We helped them on to the next career where they can apply what they've got and what they've learned. Not everybody fits that same thing, but those 5, man, oh man, they're hard to ignore.
Now, if you adapt those every day as part of your standing operating procedures, and even think about them as part of the hiring process, right?
Sure.
The onboarding process, everything. Your one-on-ones, which we were extremely committed to, attitude, effort, openness, progress, results.
Yeah.
You're going to have a pretty strong organization if you can stay consistent with that every day.
And you know what, Steve? And then interestingly enough, if you look at those in reverse order, those are the I'll call it the stepping stones for a good review. Yeah. Are the results there? If they're not there, let's take a look at it.
How are we doing on progress? Maybe we're still making progress.
Hey, if we don't have the results, but we feel great about the progress, right? And then the next is, if you're open and it's not a battle on the feedback that we're giving you, that's a pretty good start. So I don't want to go through the whole thing, but it's just interesting.
Perfect.
From the top down, and then from the bottom up.
And one thing people have noticed before is I'm always writing. I always have a paper pen. Now I use my phone at times, and we'll tie that back to a strong PDism as well. I learned early in my career, one of the PDisms I heard was the shortest pencil is better than the longest memory, right?
Right.
And Pete, you were notorious for being in a room and you would be dropping some different knowledge, insights, whatever metrics that we could shoot for. And be like, you guys writing this down, not because you thought your thoughts were so important that people needed to record them, but you'd be like, how many times a week later would you be like, I did talk about this. You don't remember this? Like, you should write this down. And at one point you hit me with that, like, yep, the shortest pencil is better than the longest memory. And it was, again, one of those, like, I had to break it down for a second. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Oh, I get it. Even a pencil this big, you're writing it down permanently, where your memory is going to fade. And we have that thing where we can trick ourselves into twisting what was said too. But if it's written down, it is what it is.
Yeah. And a funny little story with that. I learned that at going to Kent State, because I wasn't the quickest learner all the time. I had to write things down that were said, right, so that I could go back and review them. So I took copious notes. Even back then, I would actually be able to sell my notes to people that didn't attend class. So, but that's a story for a different day. But I would go on sales calls, and again, I take a ton of notes. And I write so small because you're writing on the back of a business card, right, sometimes. But I would be taking these notes, and then the customer that we're sitting across from would say something else, and the sales rep doesn't have any paper, doesn't have a pencil. All he's doing is looking. And at one point in time, he looked at me, he was like...
You got me a couple times.
He's like, did you get that? I'm like, I am going to kill you when we get you back to the car.
The vice president of sales. I'm not your recorder, okay? I'm not your scribe.
Am I a stenographer here? What do we got going on?
I remember multiple times coming back from meetings with you where I was the sales rep and being like, hey Pete, did you happen to catch what they were paying per month on that? You'd be like, yes, I did, Steve. I'd be like, I forgot to write it down.
Give you this, take it back.
Yeah, such good stuff. But another PDism, I want to spend a second on that. That, man, like, I don't know. People say I'm hyper. I don't know. Do you think I'm hyper, Pete?
It's a little strong, yeah.
Am I high strung? Yeah. Probably should have been medicated a long time ago, but it is what it is.
That's all right. It's a good thing. Yeah.
I remember my dad early on, just watching him. He never sat still. He was up every day before the sun came up. He would come
Sure.
home from work after a long 9-10 hour day. Back then you didn't work 8-hour days with
Right.
long lunch breaks. And he'd want to throw a football. He'd shoot hoops with me. He'd ask me about my day. Then he'd be out working in the yard. And our rule in our house was if that lawnmower's running or
Yeah.
that rake's in his hand, like, you better find
If
something
he's working,
to do.
everybody's working.
You better find something to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you go outside and just start like peeling bark off of a tree, but you do not sit in the house on a game system, right?
I'm
Like,
married to a woman that does that.
oh yeah,
right now.
Lynn is absolutely a worker, but it ties back into a core concept, and this is like a really defining thing for me. And you share this so much, and then you came up with a saying that really helped to drive it home for me when sometimes just me being in perpetual motion and making progress wasn't
Yeah.
enough. So I still to this day, and nobody will ever have trouble believing this, right? I still don't sit still ever.
Yeah.
Like I have an issue sitting and watching a 2-hour movie. Sometimes I have to break it
Sure.
up into increments. I have trouble on a day where a lot of people say like, oh, I just needed a weekend to refresh. Like I don't. Believe it or not, those are my worst days. If I allow myself to sit around and do nothing
Yeah,
all day,
yeah.
I start to get extremely anxious. I feel guilty. I have this feeling of discontent. Like God only gave me so many days on this earth, and I don't know how many days there are. There's not a clock, so I don't know. So I'm going to treat every day as my last. Like I need to be productive.
Sure.
I need to be impacting people, myself, my personal life. And then you hit me in a meeting really early in my career with this DCYF.
Oh,
And I think that took it to the next level because at that point in my life, there still were days where I can convince myself
yeah.
that I didn't need to do everything that I could do for my own benefit.
Right.
But DCYF hit different. So explain to people what DCYF is and why maybe for someone who couldn't do it for themselves, that phrase alone could push them a little harder.
Well, even if it was important in my own mind, I appreciate you making me feel good about it.
Yeah, it was important.
It's kind of one of those blinding flash of the obvious, right? And I don't know when it was. It might have been when Lynn was with our two girls, and they were younger, or whatever. And I was leaving, and as I left, I said they're wondering. They know I'm going to work, but they're wondering probably, is that what I have to do, or what will I be doing that day, right? And then I actually thought about it with Lynn and said, when I leave, she's trusting that I'm going to go out and I'm just going to give it my all because she's busy doing that. She had the harder job of both of us with two young ones and molding and helping them be the awesome young ladies that they are now. But so I just always kept that true because I don't ever want to come home and know that I didn't give everything I could while she was busy with a full day, having one tough day, right? So it was typically, look, you're leaving, and your family has to know that you're not going to cheat them. Do not cheat your family. So
DCYF,
that's
don't
it.
cheat your family.
Don't cheat your
And you'll
family.
agree, like on days where we might be willing to cheat ourselves, we're never willing to cheat our family. We just certainly
Yeah.
don't want to have that on our shoulders, right?
Yeah, and dear Lord, how many of us wants to be met at the door and say, hey, how did you do? What did you sell today, right? Did you have a good day, right? And did you get everything done that you needed to get done? Those kind of things. So I don't know, it resonated with me. So hopefully it helped guide people a little bit.
Continues to resonate with me to this day. And when you tell that story of like your daughter, right? I assume that would have been Maggie, right?
Maggie and Sarah, yeah.
So when Maggie was your oldest, like your daughter sitting at home watching dad go to work and you going out to do that work, like that makes it really hard to sit in the coffee shop for an extra 2 hours not being productive.
Yeah.
With that thought on your mind that like she entrusted that when dad went to work today, he was going to do everything within his power
Sure.
to not just provide a lifestyle for her, right? Like meet whatever needs she has, but also an example.
Yeah.
Right? That this is what we do as people. We go out every day, we serve people, we put in absolute everything we can. And it doesn't mean that we're not allowed to have time because you and I spent plenty of times on many beaches all over the world,
Right.
relaxing and throwing one back, right? But also exchanging stories like this that help us to
Sure.
get better. And again, like on a bad day, I just think like, man, maybe I don't have the power to push through today, but I don't want to cheat my family. I have 3 boys now, right? You were there for all of them.
Yeah.
In the same way that I watched Maggie and Sarah grow up and strong, independent women who married guys who have like-minded morals and ethics as us. And what a rewarding thing. But I think back to just those key concepts, man. And they almost haunt me, right? Like DCYF, like I can't cheat my family. Today I might want to only go at 50%, but they deserve 100.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it to them, right? And if people could just think about that, I think it would change the way that they can power through. Like, it's like hitting that second gas tank, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you're running on E,
Yeah.
and then you
Right.
think about those kids sitting there watching you walk out the door that morning.
Yeah.
You sure you
Yeah.
can't find that switch for second tank?
Sure. Yeah. You got to keep the picture up on the dashboard or whatever it is, right? You just got to keep the main thing the main thing.
Amen. And one thing I've learned too is as they get older, like it only becomes harder and more expensive, and they only pay closer attention.
Right.
So it really becomes important as you
Yeah.
hit the years I'm in now. You know, with Gavin being 16, Travis 13, and Maverick 10. Like,
Yeah.
they're sponges. They're watching everything I do.
Oh, I guarantee that Danielle sees things in them every day that they picked up from you and her on what it takes to have a great, productive day and enjoy life to its fullest, you know?
I think so. And it's such a rewarding thing as a parent. Like, one thing I will give my boys tons of credit for, and your girls are 100% the same. They grind. They're not afraid
Yeah.
to work. And
Yep.
people sometimes confuse that with like, well, you know, Steve's had a certain level of success and somehow that gets passed down to them. Like, I don't think that's the case at all. Like, Gavin lifts 2 hours a day, even
Yeah.
on days he has football lifting in the morning, because he has goals and he knows what it means to hit those goals, and he's not going to let himself off the hook. So he had a flu bug a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he lifted weights for 2 hours. And
Oh,
this
my.
understanding this concept of like, hey, we do it because it's hard, and most
Yeah.
people will quit when it gets hard.
Sure.
So, you know, we always say in sports, like, first quarter, everybody's pretty fresh. It's hard to make progress in the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
But fourth quarter, when they get tired and they
Right.
can't push through the pain, and now you can,
Right.
that's when you can make inroads, right?
Right.
And I remember cold calling, going back to the copier world. I remember early on realizing that sometimes the best things I would find would be the things, and I think it's almost like God's gift to the guy who works a little
Sure.
harder.
Yeah.
I would early on drive past a church and think like, ooh, like there's too many cars in the parking lot. They probably have a board meeting today.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go in there today and interrupt. And then the next day I would drive past and be like, ooh, there's only one car. So nobody's there
Yeah.
today. So,
Yeah.
but then I got to the point where, and it was you and other people would just say like, dude, just do it. Just cold call it. Who cares?
Right.
If there's 20 cars, 1 car, 4 cars,
Yeah.
who cares? Just go do it. And then it's done. And when I started getting to the point where I was willing to do that, or maybe I was willing to go home with 15 calls when I knew I had a goal of 20, it was always like the goal was in those last 5 calls. Again, maybe it was
Yeah.
God's gift. Maybe it was just whatever, luck of the draw, or the fact that decision makers usually stayed in the office later than people who are
Yeah.
hourly workers. But how many times did you see that same thing work out in life when you were willing to push just a little harder? Good things were on the backside of that little bit of extra effort.
Yeah, 100%. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's really life. It's just everyday life, and it's also in your work life. You know, I was out with reps, and we'd do territory blitzes, and I was out with reps, and everybody else is back eating potato chips and having a beer, and we're still out pulling on a door. Well, you know, sometimes the people that own the businesses are the ones that are working late. And you now have an audience there that can make a decision, right? And so it does pay off. Hard work always pays off. Easy sucks. You know, the things in life that are really, really worth it and thinking about and pondering and dwelling on typically it was hard work. So, you know, you think back of, you know, are these things passed down to your family, and can you see them? And Gavin, Travis, and Maverick, and the answer is yes. And I think of Maggie when they were first in the livestock business. She was 8 months pregnant, carrying spools of wire up and down the hills because she couldn't ride in the buggy, and you know, those are not light. And they built over 50 miles of fence.
Yeah, like how many head are they overseeing now?
Well, they're making a bit of a transition, but at one point in time they had 3,000 sheep and probably 500 cattle. But and I think of Sarah, you know, she wanted outside selling experience, and so she got into, on her own accord, copier sales, and was given a brand new territory where they didn't even have any presence, and she did incredibly well in 15, 18 months, and broke into a bunch of new accounts and
Beanie.
yeah, she happened upon that on her own. But that's just a couple things that I'm real proud of as far as her hard work. But
See, I think back to that DCYF, like you paved that path for them because they saw the way that your work ethic and the things you did, and the way you could push through that discomfort at times created the success that you saw. So for them, it was probably easier than someone who, and this again supports DCYF. Like if you have a lazy parent who's never really experienced success because of their work, they've never seen it pay off. Like I could understand where that person has a natural disadvantage.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, and so that's exactly the word I was going to go to next, and that is we tried. If you think of, for me, if they said, okay, what was the one concept that really paid off, whether it's work or whether it's with your family, Lynn and I both always operated on the model of earning the fair advantage, and I know you've heard it.
We talked about it on Brigham, and you got credit for it. I said Pete Battista taught me about the fair advantage.
Well, I don't want to retrace too many steps, but simply put, we just believed, and Lynn was a champion of this, where if you were polite and you were able to conduct good conversations, where you were able to listen and not talk as much with adults, and you followed up and you did the hard work, you reached out to people, and that you followed that up with thank you notes, and that you were always polite and you were always hardworking, then people want you to succeed. They'll find every reason in the world to give you a leg up, which you deserve because you've paid the price, and they love that, right? People love seeing that. Yeah. And so it's the same with people that you serve and support at work or people that you serve at home.
And I believe, I'm curious whether you agree with this, that it's probably easier to earn the fair advantage today now than it's ever been.
100%.
Because kids have terrible social skills.
Yes.
They don't know how to have conversations.
Yeah.
They're so used to scrolling their phones, not making eye contact, not really understanding what it means to work hard, right? So it's become a huge focus for me to teach my kids, like, you have to engage, you need to shake hands, you need to make eye contact. I expect you to put your phone away, and it does not come out during that dinner, right?
Yeah,
so
and how many
trying to teach them some of those things.
Yeah, and how many times, Steve, do you see and you observe a conversation where this person's interrupting this person's trying to make a point, they didn't even get it, they're so focused on what they're going to say next. But it really is the art of communication, which is if I get to ask you a question and I say, Steve, that's interesting. What can you expound on that? Right? How's that person feel? They feel great.
Valued, heard.
100%. So little things, right? Little things make a big
Important.
difference.
I know I can make this a 4-hour podcast, but I can't. And I still have 3 or 4 more questions I have to get to. So I hope everyone else is enjoying the content as much as I am, because again, I've heard 3 or 4 things. I got notes here, man. I've never stopped making notes, Pete, and I hope I never do stop making notes when you speak. But
remember when I said I'd be brief? Yeah, beware the salesperson that says I'll be brief.
You and I will never be able to be brief if we're in the same room, but it's just too good, man. I just enjoy it too much. So, but I do want to know this. What do you believe separates a good leader from an average leader?
Oh boy, along with all the other ground we've covered so far, I would just say a selflessness and really a joy in seeing other people hit their goals. I don't care for titles. I never really felt like I was a title person. It didn't mean much to me. But by gosh, if I'm able to stand up and give people awards and pump them up and talk about great things, and they go, oh, Pete, your team. I go, yeah, my team is talented. My team deserves it. My team's worked hard. My individuals know, and they're awfully good at what they do, and they're striving to be better, right? So those, I would say that selflessness.
100%.
That real desire to see people succeed and hit their goals.
I think that's why that word, like employee, comes across my ears like a cuss word, because it, and we've talked about this before on the podcast about how it like implies ownership. But I heard a leader, someone who's viewed as a leader, and they discredited themselves immediately to me just a few weeks ago. And I've watched this person and I've never been overly impressed, but they are within the industry kind of looked at as a leader. And I'm like, all right, they haven't proven anything to me yet to earn my respect. But they made a comment the other day. They were doing an interview with someone, and they said, I was 100% self-made. That's what they said in this interview. They said, like, I was self-made. This is my story. I came here and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's impossible. You can't build what you were able to build by yourself. There's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough bandwidth. So, and I thought, like, do you realize what you just did in saying that? Every person that has contributed to your story and your success, you completely just slapped them across the face and disrespected them and said, I did it on my own.
Oh boy.
And it just hit me so hard. And I think that's in large part because of you, Pete, because you've done it this entire podcast. You've done it my entire professional career with you. Like, you have a way of always making it about everyone else about you. And I think that's just, for me, that's what I've learned to do, because that's what you've taught me. And that's what Stu taught me. And that's what Jeremy taught me. And that's what Keith taught me. Like, it's not about me. It's about this
Yeah.
team. It's about our customers and our coworkers.
Yeah.
And, in priority, we always say like the customer has to win first,
Yeah.
and then the coworkers need to win.
Yeah.
And if those two things happen, the company's going to win more often than
Yeah.
not. And if
Yeah.
not, then we got to break down in the way our business operates. We need to fix it.
Sure.
But that's such an important, like imperative concept in business, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I always explained it, I mean, the most important person in your company is the one that interfaces with your customer, right? And then the next person below them is their leader, their coach. And then below that could be some of the leaders of the company. So if you can make them more effective, they can go on to make the sales leaders more effective, and then the sales leaders can go on to make your reps, more effective, and then ultimately the customer the benefits. And they're the ones that are driving the org chart, right? They're the ones that are driving the P&L. So
It's a trickle up effect.
oh man, you lose sight of that, you're in trouble. And then back to your earlier point, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm a self-made man," I just go, "Oh, okay, let me guess. You're going to tell me that you're pretty smart too."
Oh yeah.
Right? Beware the guy that says, "I'm pretty damn smart."
Yeah. Chad and I will joke when we talk about some of those people say like, oh yeah, he's real smart. Just ask him.
Yeah, just ask
He'll be
him.
thrilled to tell you
Right.
how smart and talented he is. So there's a lot of those in this industry.
Yeah.
So on that topic,
Yep.
we're going to work up to the apex of the podcast, which
Okay.
is this. So there's a lot of people in the world, and especially in this industry, I found that love promoting the good days. They love talking about the day they did this
Yeah.
and that and all the money and blah, blah, blah. But the more I interact with people, the more I find that what influences me the most and helps me to get perspective are the hard days.
Yeah.
Those are the most valuable stories. I've had hard days in this business and in my life. And those are truly the days that have defined me. And I think you probably feel the same way, because when things are going good, it's too easy to overlook the self,
Yeah.
dissection and how am I doing things. But when things go bad, you're forced to.
Sure.
So I
Sure.
want to know, and I've never asked you this question before.
Yeah.
Take me to that day. What was your toughest day, either as a business owner, business leader, whatever it was?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I got a couple real quick. The first is after 2 years in with ComDoc, I was wondering if this is where I belong, if this is where I was going to make my career. And so Lynn and I were freshly married. I think this is a year after our marriage, and I went to buy a house. It wasn't a big house, but I got declined on the loan, and it crushed me.
Wouldn't count that commission as income, would they?
Oh, back then it wasn't a lot of salary, and they didn't like the fact that there was a bonus and a commission that they couldn't count on, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't get the house, and I was mortified because I had to go back and tell Lynn that, and she knew at the same time, and it was really one of those that it drove me to make a decision to say, we ended up getting a cosign from my dad, so it all worked out, dad and mom, but the point was I was at a turning point, right? And I decided to quit, and I was leaving, and I went to I interviewed. There was a owner of a major company up in Hudson, Swagelok, and after he saw me give the training demonstration with a dozen people around the 2 or 3 copiers that I ended up selling, he called me into the office real quick, and he said, "I want you to join my team, and here's what I'm going to offer you," and so on and so forth. I watched you out there, and I just need you on the team. And I came back and told the folks at ComDoc freshly after I couldn't get that house that, yeah, I'm leaving. And then I guess through long, hard nights of where am I going? What am I doing? Can I control my own destiny? Am I walking away from something that I should really take a closer look at? Am I in control of my own destiny here? And the answer was, yeah, you can't leave. And so to me, that was a rough day that ended up turning out okay because I stayed. And then the last one I won't dive into too much. I was leading the Youngstown branch over there, serving and supporting those folks. And as I got back to the main headquarters in Akron, and they had asked me if I would come back and be the general manager there, it was every time I turned around, there were skeletons in closets, and customer calls and people that were, oh my gosh, it was such disarray. And I sat back and I went, oh my gosh.
I remember that.
That was a rough one.
That
was a rough one. And the things I learned out of that real quick though, Steve, were this.
That was my next question. How did
Yeah.
that change the way you approached it going forward? And what did you learn about yourself?
What I learned was I was just gonna grind it out. I was just gonna work harder and harder and harder. And if it mattered, and if that didn't do it, I'd work harder, right? I would just get up earlier and I'd go there later and I just expect more and I demand, and so on and so forth. And I kind of lost my way because if you've got a sledgehammer and there's a tree across the road, it doesn't matter how hard you hit it, you're not getting anywhere. So I finally realized, and maybe even through the coaching of my mentor, which was Gordy, is that, look, when that happens, business and life speeds up faster than you can deal with. You just can't. You got to slow it down and you got to inspect and you just got to take inventory on the people around you and what's getting done and what's not. And little by little, you'll climb up out of that hole. But my tenacity was I've never failed at anything, and I'm just through sheer might, and that was exactly not the way I needed to approach it. So, thankfully, the light came on and made a couple changes here and there, and then it ended up all working out.
It's funny you say that. So Travis, my middle son, started high-speed go-kart racing this past year.
Yeah.
And a saying that's common in go-karting is sometimes you got to slow down to go faster.
Yeah.
Like in the way that you come into the turns and stuff. Like what? Like that seems foreign, but
Yeah.
that's exactly what you just said. Like
Yeah.
you kind of had to slow down in order to go. Long story short, too, to give everyone the spoiler, Youngstown went on to be extremely successful. The branch went on to be successful. Everything went really, really well.
They would tell me because I left, but
I don't think that's quite true, Pete. But yeah, it was what a great story to share, and that's fantastic. And I know there's a million more, but I do have a couple more questions that I want to get to. So I know for you, at this stage of your career, permanently retired a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
At least you say you are. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw you back in a uniform at some point. But I do think you're enjoying those grandkids a little too much to get back into the rat race.
Such a blessing.
I know at one point you defined success in terms of accomplishments, in terms of hitting your sales quota. And then that became more team-oriented in terms of how do I build my team and develop my team.
Yeah.
And then it became about building like a national brand almost, right? And elevating an entire industry, which you've had. And I know you're going to say like, I don't think that's true, but you've had a huge influence. I mean, when I still talk to guys, I stay close with like Dale Highsmith. Like it's hard for us to have a lot of conversations without your name coming up. Oh. And he's, there's no better word. Like he's a stud. The dude's a sales stud, right?
He's getting it done.
Phenomenal. So how does that change at these different stages of career, the way you define success? And compare that for me to the way you define success then to the way that you do now at this stage in your career and life.
Oh boy. Okay,
this is a deep one.
This is a good one. This
Self-reflection
is a good
one
here. Certainly success is defined as your kids are healthy and well, and they've made good decisions, and they've got great life partners. And, those things rank right up there. And if I were to go back into the business world, what I found success to be is that I could remove myself from a given situation or even a branch. And as I removed myself and it was still firing on all cylinders, then to me, I got great satisfaction in that. So that's kind of one of those marks. But, I look back at the family and, I don't even need to say anything. When the family gets together, I just sit and listen. I listen to the stories. I listen to the laughter. We're paying attention to the grandkids and just having fun with them. And while I'm not playing a prominent role like maybe I did back when I was working full time, it's just nice to be back, slow down, and take inventory on those things because life goes quick and you won't get those days back.
Yeah, amen to that. And it is funny how that changes over time. Like I'm sure you've noticed, like people that only have known me for the last few years find it hard to believe. Like this is a slower Steve than I used to be.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
I used to actually fire a little hotter and part of that is attributed to a name you mentioned, Gordy.
Yeah.
I know he was an influential person to you, but I think about Gordy often.
Yeah.
For this reason, Gordy never got rattled.
No.
I mean, he is the coolest customer, coolest operator I think I've ever had the opportunity.
Yeah.
This guy was over a $400 million company.
Yeah.
And I never saw him rattled. Yeah. And now people who have only known me in HVAC or even maybe the last 5 or 6 years before that kind of say like, you never get rattled. I've never seen you mad. You've never raised your voice. You never yell and scream. I never see you cry. Like it's just your stability. And I'll tell you, it's because of that.
Yeah.
Don't ever think that I don't have that temptation sometimes.
Right.
There's plenty of
I
moments.
can get right back there in a minute.
And unfortunately, I've known you long enough that you did see me yell and scream and cry and act emotional, but I realized how it impacted my relationships long term.
Yeah.
And it left me with way too many regrets. And I didn't have time to go back and always have to make up for. And once it's like that, once the word's said, it's forever spoken. Like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the
You can't stuff that stuff back into the horse.
There's another PDism. So
yeah,
it just became easier to slow down, process it. And I think as you get older, you also develop the confidence to realize like this isn't the end of the world.
Right.
So, but the way that I react could be the end of this relationship or of the way that they think of me. So you just learn to slow down and think a little more calmly, and then you don't have to go back and say as many I'm sorry's either. Yeah.
Oh, amen to that. And the biggest thing I heard out of all that, Steve, was grace. And Gordy certainly had grace because I was more like you than you would ever have known. But he pulled me aside one time when I alienated myself with everybody in the warehouse because my stuff wasn't ready and it's all about me, right? And I looked at one of them and I said, "Dear Lord, what's going to take to get somebody to do their job around here?" And as I left, I knew that I had just gone scorched earth there. So, thankfully, Gordy didn't give me what I deserve. That's probably more.
There were certain things that I had to learn from certain people in my leadership career, right? And I always knew that if I wanted to get that poise, I had to get it somewhere else. Pete wasn't going to give me that because scorched earth was definitely more your style. But I'll tell you what, when you can balance a Gordy with you, now you got something special. Yeah. So I get that advantage of getting to, benefit from like a little Stu, a little Gordy. Like I said, even later days, I look at like Jeremy and the impact he had on me and like the way he approached everything from a very like numerical SOP types, very analytical, and up to that point, that wasn't the way any other leader had really approached the business. Like, well, have you ran the numbers? Like, oh yeah, I guess I should have done that because I was raised more in an emotional, like, hey, you manage by process, but it's more the management of people, not necessarily the
100%.
So. All right. Well, I got to bring this plane in for a landing. And this is the worst part of the podcast because I still have so much more I want to talk to you about, but we might have to do
We've already left. Our listeners have left. They've already checked out. At this point,
for the 3 people that still might be tuned in and listening, I want one more PDism for the road. Give me a good one. We've already hit DCYF.
Boy.
We've already hit shortest pencils, better than longest memory.
There's no right way to do the wrong thing.
Oh, elaborate quickly.
Well, they say moral characters certainly manifests itself when nobody's watching, right? And you can justify it any way you want, but in your heart, if you know it's not the right thing, it's not the right way to approach somebody, it's not the right way to handle something, it's not the right way to go to bed when you've got differences within the family. That just isn't right. It doesn't feel right. And your heart and your conscience and the Holy Spirit will tell you that's not right. And so you work hard to keep short accounts. So
love that. What a great one to end on. Well, Pete, I hate that we have to finish, but I do want to end with this, man. I am so thankful for you, for having had you in my life.
Yeah.
I can't tell my story without your name coming up, and I hope you understand that. And I very much use that as inspiration for an opportunity to be where you are, I hope, in a few years, where other people are looking at me as being important in their life as what you've been in mine. So thank you for everything you've done for me.
Well, that's a blessing, and I appreciate it, really do. And I love sitting back and seeing the success you've had. I mean, even when I sat back and I didn't even say much, and I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a page out of the old book, and he's playing and he's reading it well. So
it is.
Yeah, God bless you.
I keep the playbook near and dear to my heart, and I know you're never one to take credit, but I hope at some point you can sit back and appreciate just how influential you've been. So,
well, great. Thanks, Steve.
And it's also part of what propelled me to do this podcast, because while people have said do this for years, carving out the time to do this is tough, but at the same time, like there's just so much wisdom that, is at stake here if we can't pass it on to that next generation. And not my wisdom, it's people like yours and some of these other guests that we're going to have on here. So thank you for taking the time to come down here today.
No problem. I got your text message. I'm like, dear Lord, what am I going to talk about for an hour?
Well, we covered an hour and a half, and we still have more to do. So thanks again, guys. We a tough day, one tough day podcast coming at you. We got a slew of guests coming. Like, follow, subscribe so that you can stay in tune. We're going to post all kinds of updates and some previews for the next couple episodes. I hope you guys are finding this beneficial. If you are, then please feel compelled to share it so that other people can benefit from some of this content. And still, until next time, thanks for tuning in to One Tough Day.